Hello, I'm Meghann Scully and welcome to Re-Energize, a show that looks at sustainability in all its forms and what we can do to shape a clean energy future. On this episode, we're looking at fashion and its role in climate change. It's no secret that we are stuck in a cycle of fast fashion and poorly made disposable clothes. I'm here with producer Connor.
Hi Meghann.
And we had two great guests on this episode who are big believers that fashion waste is very much out of style. Aoife McNamara is a fashion designer and owner of Ireland's first B Corp fashion brand, Aoife McNamara. Cian Charlton is owner of vintage clothes shop 35 Vintage.
So Meghann, this was an episode I think was close to your heart. You're a big fan of Aoife McNamara's clothes.
I am. I actually have one of the original pieces. I think it's from her very first collection and I still have it. But I knew when I was buying it off her because I knew what she's about with her designs and stuff. And I know that's a piece that I'm going to have for years to come.
Yeah. She's like, for someone who, as she explains, only started out relatively recently with her company, it's grown so much so quickly. And she's not taking the idea of being a B Corp and incorporating sustainability lightly. Like, she's really putting a lot of work into making sure that it's kind of at the center of what she does.
Yeah, because I suppose she's at a time where fast fashion is so readily available. It's like literally in her hands because of her phones and technology. But she's there and she's taking on some of the biggest fashion houses and some of the biggest fast fashion creators in the world, and she's showing that actually no, you can still be very fashionable but be sustainable.
Yeah, it was really inspiring. And then I love kind of Cian's angle as well, because he's someone who started at a tiny, I'll just sell a few of my clothes online, and then suddenly he has this shop on Drury Street and he's running events and he's like bringing in clothes from across the world and curating them, and they're all vintage and they're all being given sort of a second lease of life.
Oh, I love secondhand clothes. I love vintage shops. I love charity shops. I just think it's really forward thinking, and it's such a great way to have really unique pieces in your wardrobe that other people won't have. And it's just, I don't know, I think your personality can really come out in your clothes.
Yeah, absolutely. So will we have a listen to Aoife first?
Aoife, it's great to have you here, and of course your amazing label Aoife McNamara. Tell us how that all started and when you set it up.
Yeah, so thank you for having me. It was a pleasure chatting to you, Meghann. So I set up the label back in 2019, and I suppose why I set it up, I was doing fashion design for 4 years in Limerick School of Art and Design. I then worked in New York, I worked in Paris, and for me, the reason I suppose I wanted to become a fashion designer was really to make change within the space, to really make change within the industry, after figuring out that the fashion industry was the third biggest polluter behind the oil and agri industry. So for me, that was such a driving force in why I set it up. Nature is my everything when it comes to inspiration in my designs. I'm always out in the burn in County Clare, taking inspiration everywhere. As yourself is so beautiful in County Clare. So nature has always been my source of inspiration. So it really drove me to want to set up a business back in 2019 to see the impacts that it was having, and to really, I suppose, just want to make change. And that's why I set up back in 2019.
And was it hard then? Because you mentioned you worked in New York and Paris, which are kind of like, Paris, like one of the fashion capitals of the world, and these huge French houses. And then in America, it's like loads of designers that we've all grown up with. So was it hard for you to be like, no, actually I want to set up an Irish designer or design in Ireland? Yeah.
I think for me, I suppose I grew up with a family of entrepreneurs. So setting up a business was nearly second nature to me. I think it was inevitable. It was always going to happen. And I think, the designers that I worked with were so incredible, so inspiring. So they just drove me to set up even more. I looked at them and I was like, wow, I'd love to have a house like this one day. I worked with Marc Jacobs in New York, and, it was just so inspiring to see his journey as a fashion designer. And for me to be working under him, was incredible, and to see what he's done. And I think, seeing the industries and what they've created within the industry was inspiring. So for me, it was a source of inspiration working with them.
And how was then getting started and getting set up? Because obviously I know sustainability is at your core, and we'll get to the B Corp now in a while as well. But how was it getting it up off the ground?
Yeah, it was hard. Of course it was. Starting anything is hard. You're making something out of nothing, and that's hard. But I think for me, I would have started on Instagram blogging. I had that Indie Irish blog back in the day, which is a fashion blog, and it was all around showing the behind the scenes of actually becoming a fashion designer within the industry, because I always felt there was never that. For me, when I was looking at fashion designers in Ireland when I was younger, I was like, how the hell do you become a fashion designer? How does this even happen? So I set up that blog, at the very start of my journey in fashion design, and I built a following on that. So on Instagram, I built a following online, and at the start of it did sort of happen organically in selling. So for me, people would start to ask, are you selling your clothes yet? I always share my designs online, and I got really incredible interest from sharing images like that on Instagram. So that really nudged me as well to set up. I had customers there waiting to buy, which is incredible to be able to start, So yeah, my customers inspired me to start as well. They pushed me to start in a way that, I just went for it. I didn't think twice because, they were there with open arms, being like, I'm going to buy it. I'm ready. So it was incredible. And of course, having my family knowledge on entrepreneurship was incredible. So yeah, it was definitely challenging, as well. But I had a lot of people who I could look to for different questions on how to start.
Mm-hmm. Incredible. And with becoming B Corp, we mentioned that, which of course is a level of sustainability. So tell us, how do you achieve that?
Yeah, so I suppose B Corp, for those of you who don't know what B Corp is, it's all about doing business as a force for good. I was the first ever Irish fashion house to become a certified B Corp. And why I even decided to do it was because I was looking at different sustainability certifications, and B Corp is one of the hardest sustainability certifications to get. And that's one of the main reasons and why I did it. It took us a full year to get it. It goes through your whole process under pillars of your community, your environment, your customers, and you're really looking into loads of different areas in your business and zoning into them and really figuring out, okay, how can I become more sustainable in these areas? And you're back and forth chatting to B Corp, and so they're helping you figure out how you can become more sustainable within different sectors of your business. You're diving into your supply chain, figuring out, okay, if this company are saying they're sustainably certified or got certified materials, say, where are their certifications? You have to contact all these different peoples in your supply chain, in your network, and really get all the proof off them. And it's a really interesting process because, sometimes you don't dive into every single aspect of your business, your water waste, energy, everything. They look into everything, and that's why I love it so much. And it really builds out a bit of a journey for you, because in 3 years' time, you recertify again.
Probably really eye-opening as well, because I'm sure there's probably factors that you thought maybe were sustainable, weren't as sustainable, or were sustainable, and things you're able to bring in and bring out. What were kind of the factors maybe that you did find the most difficult to achieve?
Yeah, I suppose for us it was really getting all those certifications. So say if there was, say if it was buttons or materials that companies might have said they were sustainable or got certified or had a certain sustainability certification to them, I found I've gotten rid of a few of my suppliers after that because they didn't have the proof, and I couldn't believe it, And sometimes, especially within nowadays, everything is sustainable, and sometimes there is a lot of greenwashing, unfortunately, going on. So I think it's so important to ask the questions, of, okay, can I actually see the certification of that? And, be curious and ask questions, because sometimes, people may not always be truthful in what they're saying. So I think we learned a lot in who we were working with since doing it and who we weren't going to work with again.
And that must be really interesting as well, because you obviously, you sketch up, we'll say, a design or what you hope will be the corset or the jumpers or the coats or the suits. And then is it a case of trying to source the materials? And, because I didn't realise how many materials are unsustainable that we actually have in our wardrobes. And, you might have something think, I invested in that piece. And then you look at the label and I'm like, that's not sustainable at all.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think for me, sustainability comes in, so many different forms, and there's also a really well-made garment. But for me, sustainable materials, that's one of my passion points. So just the design process, I suppose. So I would design mainly out of nature, get all my inspiration, my colours from there. You then go on to sketching. I start from a story, so it's normally always a story got to do with the environment or nature. And then you go into sketching whatever design you want it to be, say this jumper, and then you go into sourcing your fabric. So in Ireland, we have Irish wools and Irish linens. And there I'm literally using an Irish woven wool, not Irish produced wool. That's also another very challenging thing here in Ireland, because we don't actually use 100% Irish wool. It's imported because Irish wool is so coarse in the skin. It's really hard to wear against the skin, even though we actually have worked with incredible sheep shepherd, Cian Yarns, actually from County Meath, and he has his own flock of sheep, and we've used his wool to weave a 100% Irish wool vest, and it wasn't itchy at all. So I think, there's incredible people coming up that, are using 100% Irish wool, and that's another passion point of mine, is really really trying to bring it back to, okay, how can we actually work with, 100% Irish woven fibres again? But other than that, currently what the Irish industry are doing really well is Irish woven fabric. So we have incredible weavers here in Ireland, Donegal Yarns, John Hanley Wool Mills, McGee, Emblem Weavers. So there's lovely wool weavers and linen weavers who I always work with. So you're always trying to, I think, for me, I'm always trying to look at fibres that will biodegrade. So that's trying to stay away from the polyester fibres. So polyester fibre is made from a man-made fibre, which is made from plastic. That's what we're trying to stay away from, because I suppose just recently we were actually over in Nairobi and we went to one of the biggest landfills in the world, in Dora, and I suppose for me it's about the end of life of a garment. So if you're throwing away a garment that is made from natural fibres, it'll biodegrade. If you're throwing away a garment made from polyester fibres, which is mainly fast fashion garments, and the reason you're also throwing them away is because they're not made well. They might have ripped, they might have torn, you might have only gotten a few wears out of them, and that's maybe why you're throwing them away. And they then end up in the landfill forever. They'll never biodegrade. So alternatively, if you're shopping with a more natural fibre, first of all, they're probably made really well, so you're not going to throw them away, because it's a more slower process. It's not rushed out. It literally could take weeks, months to make that process in the garment. So the process with slow fashion houses is a lot more thought through and a lot slower pace, and everything is more expensive, of course, because they use better quality ingredients. It's sort of like fast food and slow food, healthy food.
Like organic, like organic whole foods and everything.
Yeah, literally, that's the difference. That's the exact same as the fashion industry.
Yeah, because I've seen your coverage on your social media from Nairobi, and I was over in Kenya myself last year, and it was just to kind of, I guess, like I've heard about it before, but when you see the video footage, and I saw you walking through some of the areas, and you actually couldn't even see the ground because there was so much waste. So I can't even imagine what it was like to be there in person, and just to know that that's all just it's like packaged from this side of the world, basically, all shipped over and just dumped there, isn't it, pretty much?
Yeah, so it's coming from the global north, and there's 900 million tonnes of textile waste going into Kenya yearly, and 450 million of them are worthless. So that's there. So it's just bringing it back to the process. So what happens is they come in on bales. They might come in section of denims, in sections of knitwear jumpers, and 40% of them, so they'll go to the market, secondhand market, and then the buyers say will come in, they'll pick whatever garments they want, the good quality garments that they can resell. The ones that they can't resell, that's the issue. That's the fast fashion garments, because they're the ones that are, we were in the secondhand market. We were meeting the buyers as they were picking the pieces, and I was like, okay, what's wrong with this one? Like, oh, there's a little tear there, no one will buy that. And you're looking at the labels, and it's, it's all the fast fashion houses, it's not the really well made garments. They can actually use them, which is incredible. They can make money from them. Yeah. And it is such an important industry that they have there. And what happens then, the ones they don't want will then go to the landfill. So when they get to the landfill, they're all the mainly the polyesters, the badly made garments. And as I said, like once they get there, they'll never biodegrade. And it's horrific. It was 40 acres of landfill that we walked into. People live on the landfill. There's pickers who work on the landfill looking for different things that they might be able to pick and to sell on. But yeah, as I was saying, 450 million tonnes of the waste that comes in is worthless.
It's absolutely crazy. And do you think attitudes are changing here in Ireland when it comes to fast fashion? Because I know still I see hauls nearly every single day on Instagram of these fast fashion brands, and I'm going, this is part of the problem. But have you noticed as a designer creating pieces, like you create amazing timeless pieces, and do you think the consumer is starting to change a little bit? Are they finally starting to maybe?
Yeah, I think there's so much work to be done on it. I still think there's people that, want to buy slow fashion, but then they feel they don't have the budget. But then there's so many different ways you can look at shopping sustainably. You can look at secondhand, you can look at vintage, you can look at Depop, you can look at, renting, which is incredible. Yeah. Everyone rents these days. But then also if you think about your price per wear of a garment. How many times are you going to wear a fast fashion garment compared to investing and then wearing a garment, forever and handing down through generation to generation? But I suppose back to your point, do I think there's a shift in mindset? I do, but I also think there's a huge, huge amount of work to be done. And that's why I love doing things like this, because I feel like, podcasts, interviews, that I feel like it's funny because 2 years into my business, I felt like I was being a sustainable fashion designer, but I felt like I wasn't getting through to people. And that's when I shifted. I feel like my role as a fashion designer, I wanted to become nearly, not an educator, but just to inspire people on what's actually happening. And I feel like this is nearly part of my role now as a fashion designer. So I think it's happening slowly, but I think there's so much work to be done. And if we share more things like this, that people will start to want to shop more consciously, start to want to understand more, to have more of a conscious mindset in how they live their lives. And yeah, I'm hoping what I'm doing will make some bit of a difference.
Absolutely. Now, you of course mentioned you started online, but now the beautiful location that is the cottage in Adair, which anytime I have to drive through Adair and I see it, and I just even seen the colours, it's like it's just like the perfect place for your label.
Yeah, Adair is special. So I would have grown up, take 10 minutes. I grew up in Mungret, but I would have always passed Detached Cottage, passing through Adair when I was younger. And I did always dream of like, wow, like imagine having a store there, a real Irish heritage cottage. There's not many left in Ireland, So I think when it came up on the market, I couldn't believe it. It was my second year in business. It was during the pandemic. I was like, perfect, I'll take it. Like, honestly, yeah, naive businesswoman. No, but it's that cottage opened up so many doors for me, having a presence, in store is also, it's a different way of meeting your customers. It's a different way of seeing your garments on a different body types, learning what, your customers want, altered in the slightest. Like I learned so much as a designer, and I still learn so much as a designer working in store and meeting my customers and listening to their feedback. And it's still such a special part of, what I do.
I just think I love the physical form of like going into a shop and actually browsing. I don't know, touching materials. It's just, I think there's something like really special. And I reckon if we all start to go back more into a physical bricks and mortar shop, we'd probably buy more investment pieces and actually buy less overall, because I think online it's just so easy just to go click, click, click. You mentioned the cottage there, and of course retreats, which I think it's great other aspect of your business, because I think it's a lovely way to bring people together, and all your events it's always looks so, well, firstly so relaxing because it's always usually a yoga element, but then there's also music events too, so there's the fun as well.
Yeah, 100%. And this sort of came in again when I really wanted to change my role to become more of an inspirer, an educator, or, to do more of that with the brand. I don't just see this being a fashion brand. I see this being a movement a lot bigger than, a fashion brand. So for me, I brought in the retreats over... God, it was nearly my second year in business as well. Because of that, because of really wanting to get through to people. Because I was meeting people in store, and I was like, wow, you can really have an impact on someone meeting them in person, compared to as also online, but I think even more in person. So we started our wellness series. So it was around conscious movement mornings is what we called them at the start. So it was all about recreating or really creating a conscious mindset within a consumer. So that will come from like a conscious mindset within your wellness routine. Say if it's like grounding yourself through yoga, meditation, because I really do think that like you have to pare it back, and to be a conscious consumer, you have to have a conscious mindset, and to have a conscious mindset, it all has to start from within. So I think there's so much more to having a conscious mindset than, just reading facts online. I think there's so much more to it, and that's what I was trying to create within my retreats. So yeah, they're really close to my heart, those retreats, and I'm excited to be doing more.
Well, before I let you go, what is next for Aoife McNamara? Because there's a lot there now, and I can just see it just going much bigger.
Yeah. I honestly feel like I'm just starting. I know I'm 5 years in business, but I feel like, it takes a few years to really define exactly what you want to do as a fashion designer or, as a business owner. And for me, it's a lot bigger than a fashion brand. It's a movement that I want to do. It's change that I want to make. So for me, the documentary is the next big thing. It's going to be around the brand. It's going to be around the real life impacts that the fashion industry is having on our world, on the environment. So that's the next thing we're working on at the moment. We'll have more retreats coming up, new collections, lots happening. But yeah, for me, one of the most important things right now is that documentary. And I'm so excited to be able to showcase and share, the good and the bad parts of the fashion industry.
From creating sustainable pieces to curating sustainable pieces, let's hear from Cian. Now, Cian, before we get into your shop, which is very successful, I want to bring us back to how your journey with sustainable fashion began. Like, was it something you just always grew up with, or was there kind of a turning point?
Yeah, I've kind of always been into it. My mum is a big charity shopper, so she loves it. So since I was young, I was like going along with her, and like she'd be like, "Just that's great value there for a £5 or whatever, a jumper compared to whatever 60, 70 quid on the high street." So from a young age, I was like, nearly trained into like shopping around for a deal and finding sustainable options. And then I started the business properly, I'd say. I was kind of influenced by another vintage shop in town in Dublin when I was in college, Total Vintage. I was calling in there a lot, made friends with Aoife in there, and I was like, I could do this vintage thing as well. And then when COVID came, I was like, perfect, now's the opportunity. So I sold my own clothes, and then on like Depop or something, I was like, this could be a business. And then there wasn't any other work in like the fitness industry, which I had studied in college, and just said I'd go for the vintage clothes for a while, see what happened.
That's what I was actually going to ask. So you were studying, is it what you planned to be a PT, or what route were you going?
I was doing sports science and health in DCU.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then I had a personal training course done and all nutrition-y kind of bits. But then with COVID, all the gyms were closed and college was online, and I was doing kind of agency work at like different events and like bar work at the time. So that was all gone out the window as well. I was like, I need to pay for my rent somehow. So then I started with the vintage.
Depop though has been a great source for so many people, but I guess like myself and a load of people I know, we, like you said, sell our own clothes, but you managed to turn it into a business. So when was the turning point where you thought, I can actually do this? And then, you know, when did you start treating it like a business?
Treating it like a business. It was kind of a hobby for a while, and then like I was like, okay, my thought process behind it was I'll sell my own old clothes that most of were vintage anyways. So I was nearly getting the same money back. I was like, clothes are nearly free when you're buying something vintage or on Depop. You can wear it for a couple of weeks or a couple of months and then turn it back into the same money again. And it was just like that circular kind of thing. And at one stage I was like, geez, I'd rather buy off vintage shop than Cian Charlton, like my name on the Depop. And that's when I thought, I've tried to think of a vintage name. I like for the store, I suppose. And then once I made the Instagram page with 35mm vintage was actually the name that I came up with at the start, after like a film camera that was just sitting on my desk. Then I started treating it more like a business. And
then bricks and mortar, when did that come about? That's a big step.
Bricks and mortar, I opened the shop in Mayo in the old Electric Mouse. I don't know if you would have heard of it, maybe not. In June 2020, or 2021 I think now, looking back. The place was a bomb site when we got it. My old boss, who owns a hotel in town, owned this like rundown nightclub.
And it was a nightclub?
Yeah, it used to be a nightclub, yeah, huge spot now. And we turned that into the shop then after like 3 or 4 months work, papering it all up and painting it and the rest, gutting it. We were open there for 2 years. So that was June 2021, I think. Opened the shop in Mayo in Kelchermall, like hometown. We had that for a year and a half, 2 years before coming to Dublin then.
Wow. That's a big step coming up to Dublin, because obviously, you know, there are much more competitors up here, but then also there's probably a bigger population, so maybe more people to come in. And I think, did you notice the change from going online to shop, that people now want to buy in store again?
I think during COVID, everyone was online. And then once I did like a pop-up shop in Kelchermall and other smaller premises during the Christmas for like 3 days. And I was like, oh my God, this is the way to go, like retail.
Yeah.
I like interacting with people. So having customers come into the store, I like having the crack with them. And it also saved me taking pictures of everything and modelling it and putting it online. was the main thing. It's like being able to have it in store, just like get the clothes in, steam them, wash them, price them, put them up on the rail, have people physically come in, try stuff on, touch it, feel it. Because I think there might be a little bit of a, stigma behind vintage clothing, that they're like dirty or something like that, which is just completely false. Because once you get a new item yourself, you wash it 2 or 3 times, it's essentially the same quality as vintage, like it's pre-owned. So having people come into the store made me realise at that pop-up, I was like, retail is the way to go. I want to open a shop. So then a couple of months later I opened the shop in Mayo, and then got an opportunity to come to Dublin on like a short 6-month lease. And we were like, sure, feck it, we may as well give it a go, like. And then we extended it on, and we're here still a year and 6 months later-ish.
And do you find then that the stigma, you know, as I said, I was very much so the same as you, and I think at the time people were like, you buy other people's clothes, and there was a stigma now, but it's kind of become very trendy to be able to say sustainable or vintage.
100%. And like, it's smart to be saving a few quid. Like, you know, like the way things are gone, everything's so much more expensive now. Shopping vintage is the only way to go. Like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I think people are realising that too. Like, it's like becoming trendy. Like celebrities are shopping vintage and like thrifted kind of stuff. And there's so many vintage shops, and it's way more normalised now in the Irish culture, I think, to be shopping vintage, because
it's hard though, because again, with the fast fashion, it is just like they're made from plastics, they're unsustainable, there's stuff being made in factories that are just churned out. Like, you know, I don't know if people really fully know the extent to how damaging fast fashion is. And are you noticing that with people, or like when people coming in and are people genuinely coming in because they want vintage stuff, and do you think the message is maybe starting to hit home with people about how desperate fast fashion can be?
I think people, you can get the wool pulled over your eyes about how bad the fast fashion industry is, like the chemicals that are used, the microplastics to get into like stuff that's thrown away into landfill, people getting things and them literally lasting 2 or 3 wears, and they're just kind of falling apart. And they're that cheap for a reason. Like someone's paying the price for your clothing to be that cheap with fast fashion stuff. But like the marketing campaigns they do are like second to none.
Yeah.
And like it is cheap, so like you want to feel like you're getting new clothes for good value. But again, as I said, someone's paying the price for that fast fashion stuff. But when people come into the shop, I think they're not coming in necessarily to buy vintage clothing for the sustainability aspect. Maybe like you can get genuinely really nice stuff that's banging, like really good quality in the place, and the stuff that's made in the 80s and 90s is it's already lasted how many 20-25 years. So why wouldn't it last another couple of years compared to buying new stuff today? The material and stuff were second to none back then, and we get people coming in for that reason, I think, a lot of the time.
In your shop now, who is kind of your typical customer, or do you have a typical customer?
We actually have every age group comes into the shop because we have something for everyone, and at 35 we try to be as obtainable and available to everyone. Like not just like teenagers, not just college age students and anyone older. So we have women's wear, men's wear, some kids stuff. We have every kind of category. So we sell pants, all sizes, tops, jumpers, hoodies, all sizes, jackets. So largely the cohort's probably 20 to 30, to be honest. Maybe 60% female, but we do a lot of men's wear as well. We have our online store, which you get the statistics up and it's like in around 60% women as well, but a lot of guys. And then people coming in for like more mature women's wear. We sell leather jackets, fur coats, things like that, and like different kind of pants that would be of a slight like 30 plus kind of age generally. So yeah, really everybody, like all shapes and sizes.
Accessible to all.
Yeah,
accessible
to all, exactly, yeah.
It's interesting you say about leather and fur there because, there was this kind of anti-fur, anti-leather movement years ago, and I don't agree with fur farming, but I do believe in wearing your vintage furs and wearing your vintage leathers. I think you actually almost owe it to the animals that unfortunately had to suffer. I do think like I have vintage furs at home and I do wear them because I was like, I just think it's almost disgraceful to put them into a wardrobe and not actually wear them. I was like, in some way I feel like I'm going to honour the poor, I'm going to honour them and wear it.
It's a nice way of looking at it.
Yeah, I think
100%.
and I think it's, I suppose the key thing a lot of people say is you should wear what you have. So I think if you have them, wear them.
And it's already been made now.
Yeah.
Like the poor animal unfortunately had to sacrifice his fur 30, 40 years ago, so you may as well wear it and there's no point in it being thrown away.
Exactly.
So yeah, 100%. I agree with continuing to wear these products that were already made years ago, but having to make them again because you want to buy why would you buy a fake fur one now when your mum could have a gorgeous real sheepskin coat or leather jacket, whatever, from a couple of years ago? Yeah, 100%.
I have a sheepskin actually from my father. I think it's from the 70s.
I have my granny's one. My mum gave me my granny. She was 101. She passed away a few years ago, and she had a gorgeous sheepskin jacket, and sitting in the wardrobe. I won't sell it.
This is it. This is
Well, I'll give it to someone at some stage.
They live on, you see. They'll actually outlive us. Because their clothes, they had really good quality clothes, and I used to have some of my grandmother's outfits now, and they literally are still as good as new. It's because they were well made.
Yep, 100%.
Where do you source your clothing?
Top secret, can't tell you.
Oh!
No, we have suppliers all over the world. So there's wholesalers all over the world that like basically sort through millions of kilos of clothes that get donated from various places, get shipped around the world and like categorised into what's vintage, what's modern, etc. And then we fly to say Italy, other places in Europe to handpick stuff most of the time. And you can buy in blind sometimes as well. You buy by weight, and then basically the way we sort it for our shop in town and for the online store is everything's hand selected. So if we're buying in weight, we'll handpick through all of that.
Yeah.
Sometimes wholesale other bits off, or just directly fly to the wholesale kind of our manufacturers essentially and handpick stuff there. So everything's hand selected, so the quality stays a little bit higher. That's just the way we've done it. It's a little bit more expensive to do that, but
you're putting the passion into it, because
Yeah.
I think that's the thing when you go to a vintage shop or a charity shop, you're getting something that there's only one of in the shop, and more than likely you're not going to walk down the street and see everyone else wearing it.
100%.
And I think that's for me is the unique story. And sometimes when I pick up vintage pieces, I'd love if someone had left like a letter who originally had it and could tell me the story.
We find things in pockets so often, like old ski passes from like the 80s.
Oh, wow.
We found some sort of weird note. We never identified what it was. Like different, like even shopping lists we found in people's jacket pockets. It's interesting to think about who would have had that jacket before. It's really cool.
It's fascinating, but do you think maybe like there is going to be a change in the world of fast fashion? Because I know a lot of brands, and I know this word is thrown around a lot, but there's a lot of greenwashing going on. Mm-hmm. And like, who's responsible for maybe making a change in this? Like, should it be the influencers? Should it be the governments? Should it be the brands, the people who work for them? Like, how can we actually create change?
I think it all starts with like us, the shoppers. Like the trends are only trends because we're giving fuel to the fire. So like if people stopped buying all the latest trends and the fast fashion cheap stuff, they're not going to produce it. And like people like showing that they care about this kind of thing, it shines back. Like the profits are all the fast fashion companies care about really at the end of the day. Like some government initiatives could come in. Like something that I think personally is crazy is that vintage clothes, we have to pay full VAT on vintage clothes. I don't know, it could be something to look at, like as in governmentally, that the zero VAT on vintage clothes, because it's sustainable. The VAT would have been paid wherever a couple of years ago when people bought it new. So I don't know, that's just something that could
really
actually...
I didn't even know that at all.
It could highly affect...
Like no sense that they're doing that to you.
Yeah, it could highly affect... It'd greatly affect the prices we could then charge in store, because you have to knock, there's 23% on everything. So
yeah, I think social media has probably a lot to answer for there, because as you mentioned there with those trends, and it's the shopping haul videos, and then I think maybe people feel pressure that they have to be in trends. Or that's why I was like charity and vintage, because you're not following a trend, you're following your own kind of sense of style. Yeah, like it's trendy to be shopping vintage, and I think people do a lot of vintage hauls as well, but there's like these influencers and people that do that kind of stuff get paid to do that. Like it's their job, do you know what I mean? Like that's how they're putting food on the table and paying their rent, is doing these promo videos for big brands, and they have the money there to throw at people to do that. And it's very complex really, the whole issue. I don't know, but it's definitely changing. Like, you know yourself, from in the past like 10 years, the way, in the past 5 especially, I think vintage clothing and just that sustainability ethos behind people is really improving and increasing. And I think it'll keep going that way for another while. Like, things are changing, I think, slowly but surely. Because you did mention there a while ago, you mentioned about celebrities, and I think I've noticed lately, like, especially in the red carpets, they're starting to rewear gowns that either they wore like 20 years ago, or else their children are wearing a gown that they wore 30 years ago. And I think, but they're like the A-listers, they're like the Hollywood superstars that are doing that. So I just maybe think it needs to kind of filter down.
Well, it starts there.
Yeah.
They always set the trends, do you know what I mean?
They do.
Like when you see Kim Kardashian wearing some, I don't know, and she says it's her mom's ball gown or something, then it's like, oh, right, she's wearing that. I was like, vintage, there was a couple of, she was wearing...
She wore Marilyn Monroe's iconic dress. Oh,
exactly.
My God.
Unreal. And then it's like, oh, okay, cool. This is like acceptable. It all starts up there, and it is filtering down. And
do you find as well now, you're saying with the store, like I know you've said that you kind of created more of a community there. So it's kind of like, it's more than just a shop. Like you kind of have events and stuff going on there. And did I hear something about DJs as well? Or?
Yeah, we've done a couple of like shop parties and stuff, and different events. We've got like other smaller brands into our store. Like they can we give them a little space. We can do like a kind of event. We get like sponsored a couple of drinks, get some pizzas in, like kind of building community, which is a nice thing, because like all the staff, like the whole team at 35 are all like best mates.
Yeah, class.
That's one of the main things we drive into, like the whole team. Like we're all like try to be as friendly as possible. Everyone feels welcome in the shop. It's not intimidating. You come in, it's like, oh yeah, this place is nice. Nice vibes.
So that's it for this week's episode of Re-Energize. A huge thanks to our guests. Don't forget to subscribe and spread the word about the show. Send this podcast to your most fashionable friends. We'll see you in 2 weeks for the next episode.
This podcast was produced and recorded by the Podcast Studios for ESB. Production and editing by Connor Reid. Project management by Katie Flannery. Original music by Dan Wilcox. Video editing by Judy Hassett. Graphics and design by Matt Mahon.